Hello and welcome to episode 909 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. I am one of the co-founders here at ETR, and we are coming off of I was on it and it didn't matter kind of week. Yes, that's right. You can be high on all the right stuff and still not win NFL DFS tournaments, which honestly might be the most tilting way to lose. My main GPP teams in week 2 were Tua Tagovailoa stacks, got Tua at 1%, Tyreek and Waddle single digits also. Also, Detroit Lions onslaughts, talked a ton about those on Friday and Sunday morning. Sadly, I just had too much Sam Laporta, but getting Goff at 3%, Amon-Ra 4%, Jameson Williams at 3% at home against the Bears. I mean, my God, what a smash that was. And then also the Dak Prescott doubles. The preseason thesis on the Cowboys hit in a massive way. They couldn't defend anyone. They run the ball, meh. Let's get Dak Prescott 50-plus dropbacks with Lamb and Pickens and see what happens. And also had Neighbors there as the clear bringback, and he went nuts. And that wasn't that owned either. And yet, despite being on all three of those GPP things in a big way, I was roughly break even, small loser in tournaments in week 2. My best team finished 86th in the big FanDuel $250 buy-in. It was a Dak double with Neighbors. Neighbors had 36. Dak double went off. It also had James Cook, who went for 29. Also had Jonathan Taylor, who went for 31. But when the week is so absurdly high scoring, the winning team had 207 FanDuel points. You needed Jamar Chase and Rome Odunze and Jared Goff. You basically needed to be perfect. And so in weeks like that, it is what it is. And this is exacerbated by how top heavy most DFS tournaments are these days. I'm not going to sit here and complain about it. I know what I'm getting into when I enter these contests that are $1 million to first, 100K to second, 10K to 10th. And for 86th, I get 2x my buy-in. If you're not getting first, second, third in these tournaments, you're losing, right? And so lineups, the way you make your lineups should reflect that. Or, just as actionably, maybe we should be finding tournaments that aren't so top heavy if this format bothers us, And so if you're looking for tournaments that aren't as top heavy, finding ones where 10th place is 10% of first place is a good barometer. In other words, let's say first is $1 million, 10th is 100K. That's a good barometer. But anyway, I know a ton of ETR people crushed this week. Appreciate everyone who tweeted or sent a note. I'm not going to lie and sit here and say that I'd rather you win than me. I mean, let's not be ridiculous here, but it's legit almost as good. So appreciate everyone who sent notes and screenshots of their success. I want to spend a minute here on Travis Hunter. When looking at what went on with Travis Hunter in the preseason and what went on in week 1 to what happened in week 2, I just thought it was a good reminder of it's okay to just not know. And sometimes I need to remind myself of this also. It's okay to just be like, man, I don't know. People were so angry. They were so adamant over the summer. You fucking idiot. They didn't take Travis Hunter second overall to play cornerback. Travis Hunter is going to be better than Brian Thomas right away. He's not going to play defense. You moron. And then in week 1, Hunter plays just 6 snaps on defense, and these people were out there victory lapping. And then guess what? In week 2, Hunter runs just 60% of the routes on offense and plays 43 snaps on defense. And I know they had a cornerback injury, but still, that's part of it. And so my point is, yes, we are in the business of trying to predict the future, but the best way to do that, and I know no one wants to hear it, but the best way to do it is to think of things probabilistically. I really didn't know how the Jaguars would use Travis Hunter. When he was going in the 30s and 40s overall early on after the NFL draft in best ball drafts, I thought he was a horrific pick. In the 30s and 40s, it did not account enough for the outcomes in which, well, he might play a ton of defense. Well, he might not be that great of an NFL wide receiver right away. Well, maybe he's only going to play in 3 wide receiver sets because they have Brian Thomas Jr. and they seem to really like De'Ami Brown. But once Travis Hunter started going in the late 60s at times, I thought it was worth a gamble in the right team constructions. But it's okay to say, I don't know exactly, and then build a range of outcomes off of that. I still don't know exactly how it's going to play out for Travis Hunter this season. I do know that calling people stupid for suggesting Hunter had a lot of risks in his fantasy profile, it's just insane behavior. Hot takes are good for clicks and would be better for us reaching new people and making more money, but it's not actually the way that you win, in my opinion. It's okay to say, I don't know. And I just want to remind myself of that more than anything. Quickly on cash from week 2. It was another really loosely priced week. It's always loose on FanDuel, which is part of the reason I think I've been enjoying it there. But on DraftKings this week, we got the 7,500 Christian McCaffrey, 3,100 Harold Fannin, 5,200 Drake May. There were other things you could have done, but saving at tight end and quarterback, getting the Achane, CMC, elite pass catching workhorse types around 7K on DraftKings. I mean, that's just the dream. So I'm not surprised I'm off to a good start in cash. I've always found that looser price slates are better for me. Both of the first 2 weeks have been pretty loosely priced, I think. You can read more in the article on the site if you care. It's totally free, but I know very few people do. All right. Enough is enough. It's time to get to everyone's favorite portion of the program, the listener questions. Question 1 from Losing Better says, if you had to start your gambling life over today, would you focus more on DFS or poker? Or is there another area you try to spend more time in? Great question, Losing Better. This is one of the biggest things I fucked up when I was actually a youth. The answer to your question, should I focus more on DFS or poker? The answer is neither. The answer instead is focus on your career and business because it scales and it compounds so much better. And it's just really hard to see that when you're young. When I was 22, I thought I'd never have a real job. I could just always play poker or figure it out or when I needed money. I thought anyone wearing a suit and going to work was a stiff. For example, I was already in poker before the Chris Moneymaker thing happened. A smart thing to do, in hindsight, of course, a smart thing to do would have been to say, hey, this poker thing is going to be massive. I already know a lot about it. I should start a business around it. My friends Cal and Cam, they started Pocket Fives, or some of these guys that started actual online poker platforms. Taylor and Wiggins with Card Runners, or Galfond with Run It Once, or start a company that makes custom poker tables. I mean, who the fuck knows? There's a million different ideas. My point is that none of that stuff, it didn't even cross my mind. Not once. All I thought to myself was, holy shit, poker is blowing up. I'm going to be rich from playing. I'll never have to work again. And that was just so wrong and so dumb. As I got older, I realized that gambling doesn't really scale. And you're also at the mercy of the ecosystem. For poker specifically, the biggest issue is that you have to sit there. In order to earn, you have to physically be there at the table, putting in a lot of mental effort and your physical presence. And when are the games best? When are the poker games best? They're best when the Rex, aka the fish, they're not working. That means Friday night, Saturday night, holidays. Is that when you want to work? Maybe. But as you get older, it's not really ideal when you have a family. And then there's all these other like dead ends in gambling. Like, yeah, I was beating 5-10 at Borgata and 10-10 at Parks in fucking 2008 or whatever. But I was not beating it bad enough to actually be rich. And then if I wanted to move up, play bigger, well, there aren't really games. You could go to Vegas and maybe find the 25, 50, 100, 200 or whatever. But those games, if they're public, are reg infested, much, much, much tougher games. I doubt I'd even be winning in them. And then as time goes by, players that are losing end up, most of them end up quitting. All this is just a long way of saying gambling doesn't scale the same way business does. And even the best players have seen this. I mean, Doug Polk and Phil Galfond, undoubtedly two of the best poker players ever, have been focused on businesses for years now. All the GTO bros, they all have GTO training sites now. Most of the best DFS guys have some business stuff going on. Rufus, one of the best sports bettors ever, he got into business with unabated, etc. So listen, losing better. I fucking love DFS and poker. I'm not trying to be discouraging and negative. I don't want to kill anyone's dream, but my advice, you don't have to listen to me, but my advice is to do DFS, poker on the side during your free time, as a very serious hobby, while also building a career, an actual set of skills in a niche that you want to become an expert in. And as for DFS versus poker, I mean, these days, for me, at my point in my life, I don't have the time or energy to drive to a casino, wait to get in a game, hope it's a good game, sit there for 8 hours, not see my family and my friends and not exercise and not be outside. So for me, DFS is just like a no-brainer over poker now, but I think it depends where you're at in your life. Question 2 from Philly Special. He says, will you ever move back to Philly? Yeah, I appreciate you wanting me back, Philly Special, but I'd say that's highly, highly, highly unlikely. I spent the first 39 years of my life, 38 years of my life on the East Coast between the Washington, D.C. area, Philadelphia, New York. I, I think that's enough for me. There's definitely an energy on the East Coast, like a hustle, a competition of sorts that I definitely like or liked. I'd also say the food. I mean, food in New York, food in Philly is just unreal. Some of the best that you can find anywhere. But at this point in my life, I value kind of the peaceful calm of being in the open more, being outside, not being around people scratching and clawing their way like through the rat race to get promoted at their job. Every time I land in Philly now, I get off the plane and it's so jarring. I've only been gone, 4 or 5 years, but I land and it just strikes me how much angrier and faster everyone is. So out west, I think just suits me better now. We get an average of 252 days of sun per year here in Colorado. It rarely rains. I really think people often underestimate how important weather is to happiness. Like, do you guys know how good it feels to wake up on a Saturday morning, go on the deck, and let the sun hit my nude body? And I mean, in Colorado, we can do that in December, January, March. Like, if I tried that in Philly, it would be dark and raining. I'd have some slob with a Wawa hoagie in his hand yelling at me. So, yeah. I'm sorry, Philly Special. I'll be back to visit. Question 3 from Mike. He says, what is the most deranged thing you've witnessed at a poker table? I can only imagine some of the things you witnessed back in the day. Yeah, I mean, nothing too crazy that I can remember, Mike. One of my favorite characters from the real old times was this guy, Sleepy Mike. Rest in peace, Sleepy Mike. He was this like disheveled older dude. He would play crazy long sessions of limit hold'em, usually, 40-80 or 81-60 at Borgata. He'd always be literally falling asleep at the table. And someone would tap him when he got cards and he'd look. And sometimes he'd go from stone snoring, like snoring asleep. Someone wakes him up. He looks at his cards and he raises, like literally woke up with a hand. I mean, what a sick pup. Love that guy. But honestly, I can't remember anything too crazy. There probably was, but I was so oblivious that it didn't register with me. I would say I got most angered by the deranged freaks eating wings or tuna fish sandwiches while playing live poker, touching the same cards and chips as everyone else. But it's probably not that big a deal. I just have a lot of problems. Question 4, Christopher says, hey, Adam, glad the solo pod is back. Wanted to hear your thoughts on AI and fantasy. It seems like there's a massive opportunity there, and the first company to break into that space will be at a huge advantage. Any thoughts? Do you think it'll always be a manual process? Yeah, well, you guys aren't going to believe this, but I'm personally not too deep into the AI space. Shocking, I know. Obviously, I use the chatbot stuff, but I use it in a way that is just glorified Google searching more than anything artificial intelligence. We are working at ETR, we are working on some AI stuff behind the scenes. I don't want to get into details yet, but hopefully we'll be able to soon in terms of public facing stuff. I'm sure a lot of our guys are using it to help, on the coding dev side as well. One thing that I know people don't want is, and I don't want, is AI driven content, right? Would I read an AI driven summary of a show that I didn't have time to watch, if it was really good, for sure, I would. Would I read an AI-driven report about usage? If it's accurate and really good, sure, yeah, I would. But that's just like saving time in terms of stuff that I could do myself or we could generate reports ourselves. Would I watch a show though of AI bots trained to talk like me or an article to write like Thorman or Silva? I don't want to say never, but I definitely would not want to read that right now, or I don't think anytime soon. I continue to think that our moat is the marriage of tech and data sci and ball knowing. I get pitched every day by some software bro who is convinced that just needs us to talk about their software, their product on this podcast, and we'll all be rich. And at the same time, I also get pitched every day by some ball knower bro who says he watches every game and has the unique ability to ingest that and predict the future. I don't think either of them will be successful on their own. The hard part, but where I think you get the best results, is when you marry the two. And AI will continue to help us do that. But taking the manual part out of it completely, I think that's where we win and that's where we beat people. So yeah. All right. Question 5. Last question we're going to do today comes from D. Millie. Says, "Hey Adam, my daughter just graduated 6th grade and is only 11 years old. A boy from my daughter's school is apparently interested in going on a date to the zoo with my daughter. The boy's father, who I had met once at a birthday party, texted me asking permission for them to go on the date. Am I allowed to tell this donkey to go fuck off?" It's such a heartwarming story. And then he goes, "Am I allowed to tell this donkey to go fuck off?" Or is this proper etiquette and I'm just tilting over the inevitable? Thanks. Um, well, D. Millie, I hate to be the "I told you so" guy because that's honestly a terrible guy to be. There is an epidemic going on online, in real life, everywhere of "I told you so" bros. Sometimes when I'm lying in bed late at night, I'm baked out of my skull. I think about something I said during the day that could be construed as a brag or as an "I told you so." And I just want to bury myself under the earth, you know, because I hate being that guy. But yes, of course, sometimes I do it too. I can't help it. But, anyways, allow me a moment here, D. Millie, to give you an "I told you so." If you had subscribed to Gender Labs LLC 11 years ago, you would not be in this predicament. This is why we created and founded Gender Labs. This was the original, this was the core product to help people achieve their desired offspring gender through sexual position and menstrual cycle optimization. If you wanted a boy, D. Millie, you could have purchased Gender Labs in-home consultation product where I would actually be there at the moment of conception to coach you through it. But as played here, as played, D. Millie, I don't really think you can do much. Yes, you could say my daughter is too young to date. And honestly, that's my first instinct also. You text back the dad, you say, "Hey, my daughter's too young to date." That's probably how I would play it. However, I'm not sure that's GTO. Not because of this kid trying to take your daughter to the zoo, but because if you play it that way, if you say, "No, she's too young," you open yourself up to getting check raised by your daughter. "Daddy, you told me I couldn't go to the zoo with Johnny. I hate you. I'm rebelling against you. I'm going to sneak out of the house. When I'm a teenager, I'm going to go wild because you tried to repress my freedom. I'm going to wear crazy clothes." And so, D. Millie, I'm not sure that your hand here is strong enough to continue against that check raise from your daughter. When you're playing against really balanced and sharp opponents, you have to be really careful with your ranges. So I think in this spot, with all the info we have now, we got to let her go to the zoo, man. I think we got to let her go. I'm sorry, D. Millie. Good luck. All right. That is going to do it for another edition of the Solo Pod. For anyone with in-season product, first run of projections for week 3 will be out by Wednesday night. For anyone interested in NFL player props, check out that tab on the site as well for both the official props and the full stat subscription. For free shows on this feed this week, Team by Team with Silva coming out Tuesday night, Rest of Season 150 show with Mark, Jack, and Daigle coming Wednesday afternoon. For premium shows each and every week, Waiver Show with Daigle will be on site for DraftKit Pro or in-season subscribers. Friday night, myself, Silva, and Wiggins for ETS. Saturday, Dink and Leone for ETM. Saturday night, Leone lineup building show. 3 Sunday morning shows, plus showdown shows, more. To watch all those, you do need our in-season product. For producer Ryan, for producer Luke, for Jerry, the most beautiful beast in the world, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.